This conference will now be recorded.
Great.
Good afternoon. It's Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. This is the regular September meeting of the Davenport Public Library Board of Trustees. We're meeting in meeting room C of the library main. My name is Steve Imming, President of the Board of Trustees, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First, introduction of attendees. I'll call the roll. Malavika.
Present.
Amanda.
Here.
Judy.
Here.
Joe.
Present.
Greg.
Here.
And I am here. We are expecting, are we expecting Sylvia and Tom? Anyone said they're not coming?
I haven't.
Okay, we're expecting Sylvia, Laura Guinness, and Tom Engelman. They're not here presently, but maybe along soon later. Okay, also with us today are Jeff Collins, the Library Director, Lexi Riley, Assistant Library Director, Jennifer Williams, HR Operations Manager, Jason Orr, IT Supervisor, and Nathan Shipley, our Recorder. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
And so move, Steve.
Thank you, Malavika. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Joe. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Let's see. Malavika?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is public with comment. Hearing and seeing no one, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is reports and communications. First item there is the Friends. Yes, Friends president is not here, so we'll say that attended their meeting, and there's a presentation from Lexi, by the way, you did a fine job, for enhancements to the kids area of the libraries, and a proposal for that. And so that was given to the Friends Board with the hope of getting some funding from other sources. There also was an item on the agenda for a request from the Fairmont Library for some funding for their food pantry. And they, a little bit of background on that, they have children from the neighborhood areas who are, sometimes asking for money to get snacks out of the vending machines there. And so speaking with the Riverbend food pantry, or the supervisor there, made a proposal or a request to the Friends for funding to help with that. I think that was like $1,500 a quarter for the fourth quarter and most of next year, and the Friends approved that. Anything else of significance?
I believe those were the two. They did have one update for the T-shirts as well.
Yes.
For that fundraiser.
Yeah, they have a fundraiser going for T-shirts, and their T-shirts say Davenport needs public libraries. There was a suggestion from library staff to make that America needs public libraries, and that was accepted by the Friends board. So anyway, those highlights from their meeting. Next item under committee reports, under reports and communications are committee reports. First one there is finance. Tom's not here yet. You aware of anything, Joe?
No, everything looks pretty much in line. I guess I would ask one question.
Okay.
The software costs were above and beyond, was that expected or?
Great question, Joe. Yep. Tom gave us a heads up on this as well because he was curious about that. So did a little bit of research to figure out why we were suddenly at 132% for 530 and then also at 84% for 226. So those are both causes for concern for us. Essentially, for a little bit of background, I'll try not to get into the weeds too much on this because I might not fully understand it as well. Fortunately, Casey's here to help me out with this. But the Governmental Accounting Standards Board issued a general order called 87 back in 2017. And so this is essentially for the Government Finance Officers Association, best practice. Perfect timing. And what they essentially recommended for best practices for accounting are that expenses for contracts are expended in the bulk of the year in which they take place. So what essentially happened was the city, to be in compliance with this best practice, took approximately $32,500 from our FY22 budget and moved it into the FY23 budget. So those in particular were a software line for 530, and that was for $7,580.83 for EBSCO, Masterfile Premier. And that was because we paid for that subscription for, but now it's actually in. So that was, and the other one was 7,000 for Data Axle, and then in the 226 was our maintenance agreements for our sorters, and that also was a significant chunk. So what we're going to need to do as an organization is move forward to try to align our ongoing contracts with the fiscal year to go July 1 to June 30th as much as we can. And then we need to figure also out how to replenish those funds, working with city finance to make sure that we get back on track. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's good that the city's doing that to be in compliance with best practices. Yeah, it came as a surprise to us as well. And hopefully we'll be able to get that figured out in the coming months.
So, and those are, as you described, allocated expenses from the city, but not things that we purchase and pay for ourselves. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're monies that were allocated to us as part of the $5.7 million budget. Yeah.
Okay. So swing back around. Tom Engelman, Laura Guinness, and Sylvia Roba have now joined the meeting. So we were just at the Finance Committee, and Joe asked the question about the software, so I don't know if there's
Yes,
anything else.
actually, I had talked to Jeff yesterday and warned him that that question was coming.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because, yeah, he had just explained that, so. Okay, so if there's nothing else on the Finance Committee, Personnel, Amanda, anything from Personnel Committee?
Nothing to report from the Personnel Committee this month.
Okay, thank you. Talavika, Advocacy?
Yes, I'm going to take some time. No, so thank you, Steve. First, I must thank again Lexi and all the staff. I attended the DEI meeting last month. And as you all know, I am representative on the committee, DEI committee. Excellent, excellent things happening. We looked through an absolutely wonderful maker space policy. And there were excellent suggestions that all of us had and, incorporated. And Lexi did tell us that you would be taking them ahead on that day. The other fantastic thing is a fabulous LibGuide Quinn has created. And the LibGuide is if you go on the website and you click, I think it's electronic resources, and it clicks down and says LibGuide, and that's the first one. A LibGuide is basically nothing but an easier way to navigate and present information. And many libraries use, and I think we also use. And this LibGuide is Black, Indigenous, and People of Color resources. Why do I say it was fantastic? Quinn was asked a question a few months ago about a certain issue that the client had. And she realized that we did not have those resources. Quinn immediately sat down and made this detailed LibGuide. I would suggest that you take a look at it when you have a moment. And it's just beautiful. It covers everything. If someone goes there, needs any assistance, Quinn is not there, or other people are not there to help, they can go there and seek all the information that they need. So fabulous job Quinn had. The next one was one of the staff members attended a Coursera, I think it was a free Coursera session on staff development, and she attended that. And an interesting point that she brought up was about mentoring when we are talking about employing diverse populations in the library. She brought up this excellent point about mentoring those diverse populations when they are hired or employed. And I immediately reflected upon an experience I had when I started working in 2007 in a US library, though I had an experience of having worked as a librarian. It is absolutely essential that mentoring diverse populations is necessary, and that's something that we need to talk at later meetings when we do in our DEI meeting. Emily brought up an excellent point of, I think Jeff is going to cover it in his director report, but the Hispanic Heritage Month. Emily had such great ideas, and we're going to celebrate the Hispanic Heritage Month. And I kind of inquired with Lexi and Emily if it would be okay to approach Mercado Fifths and Grupo's Maria Ontiveros for prizes. And Maria was so excited to what we are doing in this library. I mean, she came up with prizes, and she has these excellent prizes that our library is right now talking about and promoting with the challenge that is coming up for Hispanic Heritage Month. So I have a request to you all. September is Library Card Sign Up Month. And we've been doing some excellent job, I see on website, and I'm willing to volunteer for it, is we have these pictures that, what does your library card do? And people have been talking, Jeff, I saw Jeff talking, we had the fire department, we had Sergeant Harris. It's so excellent that we can showcase what our library card, the power our library card brings forth. And it would be great if we would like to volunteer for that endeavor, that project. And I think it's Brittany who does it, right? So that's that. And lastly, I had a question, and someone was talking about, they went on our website, and I said, I will bring this forth when I go to the meeting. They went on our website and they saw something which is Book a Librarian. And they were not aware that we give such services. That is, you can book a librarian, and the librarian can help with various resources. And then I did go there to see the various help opportunities that the librarian can give to a patron. And they said, we were not aware that such a facility is available. And I said, okay, I will share it with my colleagues when I go to the meeting next. So basically, lastly, I inquired with Steve, Jerry, and Jeff if it was okay, because we have the Makerspace inauguration happening at the end of this month. And I felt a few of the postcards that we were sending, if I could send some personal ones, in the sense, because some of them you can identify that they could be would-be donors. So writing a personal note and sending a few off, and they said it was okay. So I kind of sent it off on, when I say on our behalf, I kind of invited saying, Library Board of Trustees would love to have you over. So I hope you all don't mind me making a mention that way without asking you all here. So these are my updates, Steve, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next item under reports and communications is the director report. Jeff, anything you want to add or amplify?
Yes, thanks, Steve. There are a number of items I wanted to discuss included in the director's report. So on that first page, we talk about III, our integrated library system is Polaris. And right now we have a process where Rivershare Libraries is in the process of configuring that new catalog, and it's called Vega Discovery. So we have a team of employees that are working on that, including Bianca, Meredith, and Jason. They're working on that consortium team to configure it for our environment. And what we're hoping is to do a soft launch on November 1st and then a full rollout on January 1st, 2023. And then Brittany and her team in community outreach and marketing are going to develop a communications plan and prepare patrons for that change. And I wanted to make sure that the group was aware of what that is going to entail. What it essentially is a new catalog. So it'll look differently than what we currently have. You will still have access to the existing classic catalog. However, this will be a new version of that catalog. And it's a real simplified catalog. There's not going to be a lot of changes. It's more cosmetic than anything else. It looks to me very much like you would go to Google's homepage and there's just the search bar and there's a whole bunch of white space. That's essentially what that interface looks like. The big feature change that we're excited about that we think will be better for patrons is what they call a roll-up feature. And what that does is it takes all the formats for a particular title and puts them on one record. So if you're searching for a new James Patterson novel, as opposed to seeing the novel in print and then large print and then audiobook and then ebook, it's basically all on one record. So all the different available formats are going to be in one location. So we think that is going to actually be easier for patrons to use. However, if they prefer the classic catalog, we'll still have that. And we do need to work through some kinks on that as well. We're hoping there may not be things that we can do about it, but we are working with the company to try to do that. So for example, there's no current, right now, using the catalog, you can do a search, and if you can't find an item in our catalog, you can click on the Mobius link, and that'll take you directly, including the search results, over to Mobius. If you can't find it in Mobius, you click on the Prospector link, and that'll take you over to Prospector. That does not work right now. Right now, you'd have to re-input your search features in Mobius and also in Prospector. So we're working on that. And then there's one other downgrade in or lack of functionality that we're working on, and that is the borrow by mail or books by mail. That is not an option as a drop-down right now, and that's because the company is working through it with a consortium. Because I think we're the only library that does that in our consortium in Rivershare libraries, so we're working on that. So I want to make you aware of that. There have been a lot of staffing changes in the recent past, so just draw your attention to that. Jennifer and her team are working great on filling those positions, and we're doing our best to try to make sure that that'll minimize any kind of disruption for the public. We're not anticipating closing any branches. However, we do have a plan if we have to do that. And for example, we had 4 employees out with COVID in the last couple of weeks as well at any given time.
But if I just ask a question.
Yeah.
How does Prospector differ from Mobius?
It's a totally different catalog,
Okay.
and it's a different level. So what we're doing is we're using Rivershare. We're using our own catalog in Rivershare for materials. Then we're also using Mobius, and then we're also using Prospector. So it's that kind of third level for if we're not able to provide materials. And that's what we're essentially doing for our interlibrary loans or ILLs.
So does Prospector go beyond the limits of Mobius?
Well, it's just a different database,
Okay.
essentially. So there's going to be a lot of duplication, but it's a larger system than what we have, because we only have 11 libraries in Rivershare. So that's why we're participating with Mobius and then also with Prospector.
Yeah, my daughter was looking for a book some time ago and couldn't find it in Rivershare. And saw the Mobius button, wonder what this is, clicked on that, and ended up getting the book from Colorado. So he was impressed. Okay, thank you.
The cafe space in Eastern, we did not receive any responses, as you know, to the RFP we issued in June. We did have 3 possible leads for partnering with outside vendors. One has not responded. Outside of their coffee camper, because all their equipment investment to expand that. About was a potential partnership that Quinn had for Goodwill for them to operate the coffee shop there as part of their workforce development program. However, none of those options are viable at this time. So A couple of other options that have been suggested by staff are to provide vending machines or a self-service coffee pot or Keurig machine, or potentially reconfiguring the space to something else. It might be more space for the Friends to offer book sales. One suggestion was to do an open mic stage area, a gift shop, that sort of thing. What I'm hoping for today is a little bit of guidance from the board in terms of whether we want to continue to try to operate that space as a cafe coffee shop, do something else. And for further background on this, since Eastern was built in 2010, we've had limited success off for its intended purpose. There have been a couple of streaks where we've had, but there have also been a lot of.
What's the handicap for Goodwill? Why would they? Is there a way we could help them?
They were not interested in pursuing that option with us. They didn't share with me the reasons why.
Can I ask what happened, I don't know, 6 months or a year ago? I thought that we had Cafe de Marie was gonna expand in there, and I thought that that was like settled and signed, and then there were some delays. Did we end that? Did they end that? Did it just never? Like a 30-second reminder of what happened.
Yeah, they asked to be relieved from the agreement they had signed.
Thank you.
Yeah, they were going to move in and then.
Yeah.
I knew that the finish line kept moving, but I had never heard when we were like, okay,
Yeah.
we're calling. All right, thank you.
And as I recall, it was COVID related.
Yeah.
because they had been-
Yeah.
Well, and then the traffic, street being torn up too. Because that was starting to happen about that time.
Oh, okay, but they're working on 53rd.
Jeff, something came to mind, when people are not, I mean, these things are not happening. Now, Danvers School District as well as EICC both have culinary degrees, not degrees, graduation requirements. And they do an excellent job every year at the end of the year, where the students have this lovely meal that is cooked and, you buy tickets for it. I mean, it's really a gala affair. And you have to cook, you have to manage, you have to, do the economics of buying, and it's a kind of an internship. And they are, the teachers kind of, they look over the apprenticeship and the internship. So just a thought kind of rushed by, if it is something that we, could talk with EICC, because they are also a part of our library system, and DCSD, if they would be willing to do something as a little cafe, because a cafe or, pastries shop or whatever it might be, because they do need outlets and they find it very difficult for their students to go out and actually manage one. So it just kind of came to my mind to think about if that's a possibility, and if it's kind of helping the student, again, indirectly. I don't know the economics of it, because we have maintenance and all that we have to consider. But is it something of an option to just discuss about?
Well, I think their coffee shop is run by a third-party vendor.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying, is I think that they tried to implement that at the downtown campus, because I was involved in that project.
Right.
And they were not successful, and they've actually had quite a bit of turnover in that downtown
Yes, they
location.
have.
Right.
It's cool beans right now.
Yeah,
Right, it's
so-
cool beans, but,
So-
yeah, and this,
Worth an ask.
yeah, and their student, the ICC student, came to do her internship at ICU, and that's how, and, people started talking about it, so that their shop itself is being, to agree on that.
Yeah, and that's certainly an avenue we can. Well, does the board feel strongly one way or another whether we want a cafe?
I always want a coffee shop in every.
And
And I'm sitting here feeling like, I'm the coffee shop person, why haven't I? Space, and maybe I just need to be more thoughtful about doing it, because I do visit all the coffee shops pretty regularly.
I don't know why it stopped, but the Burlington Library for a number of years had their coffee shop in line with working with handicapped people,
Mm.
running the shop. I don't know if that is something that's ever been looked at here, but
That's what we were
possibly-
hoping to do with Goodwill.
okay, but
Yeah.
possibly HDC.
You know, the problem is that if you want a real coffee shop there, it does require equipment. And the equipment is expensive.
Okay.
And, you know, so it has to be thought to be a very viable operation. Now, I guess we would have to do a lot in terms of promoting it and, you know, making people aware that it's there and all of that, if we wanted it to be successful. But I'm willing to call in a few favors. I'm just kidding. I'll talk to a few people and see if I can. I don't know, how does this RFP get communicated? Like, how would, if I were the owner of a smallish coffee shop, how would I hear about it?
So it gets posted to the city's bidding process
Oh.
and then disseminated out to any vendor in the area that we might be either had opted into that process, so they're aware that RFPs are coming. The library staff and cities or ones that we had heard of or had been aware of and shared that information with them.
Okay,
So I don't know how, and then we also shared on Facebook. Where,
Mhm.
what else did we do? I thought to get the word out.
And I think it was the library, as well as it also went on the next door thing, the local city app thing.
So we own no equipment.
So we
they-
have a great space for it, and there
Right, and
is
that's-
some equipment there. We've got a refrigerator in
Oh.
place, there's a industrial sink, there is all the, the equipment at the front counter, including I don't know what you call that little refrigerated area. It's a
Display
glass
case.
case display, and other things of that nature. The only thing it's really missing is kind of like deep frying. There's no stove per se, right, that
I
we
don't
could
think
use for,
deep frying does not need to occur.
or maybe not deep frying, but
It
Yeah,
doesn't have an
there's
espresso
grilling.
machine.
yeah, we don't have like a kind of grilling stuff.
So
But we don't have the actual equipment
Are-
for a cafe or coffee shop. That
are
would
we
be the vendor.
looking at a coffee shop with minimal food? Are we looking at providing lunch or something in between, or we don't care?
We just want to rent the space.
I don't know, it's been quite a rocky number of years.
Right.
And I don't know, it just seems like, oh, this is great, but it just, so
Even
how long do we want to go through this?
Because how many
How many
RFPs have we done? I mean,
Many.
I'm aware of at least two.
Many,
We've had at least 5. at
Many.
Thermo.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had our hopes dashed so many times.
So one, just maybe a slight pivot that we could perhaps consider. I know that in Iowa, to sell goods, you have to prepare your goods in a commercial. Some for-profit businesses right now that rent out commercial kitchen space to allow people to bake the bread that then they sell at the farmer's market, et cetera. That's why I was curious about the equipment, because there could be an avenue, if we didn't want a permanent, independent business, we could perhaps look at advertising that as a space that people could come in on Friday, for example, bake their bread and then sell it at the farmer's market on the weekend.
It's
But
not-
it doesn't sound like there's
It's
an
not a
oven.
commercial,
No,
it's not a
so-
commercial kitchen.
Yeah, it's pretty limited in offerings. It's very much like a traditional,
Doesn't have
low-level,
3
small
whole sinks and
cafe,
no.
Oh,
little coffee.
To bring the toaster oven.
It would not be legal.
alright.
Hasn't the issue been limited traffic? I mean, like, we get somebody and they open and no one shows up.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not totally sure. I mean, I didn't spend, a lot of time paying attention, but I don't know if it was that or what I might have thought of as poor management or unrealistic expectations or something more
All
like
of those
that. Right, more than just, the traffic, I don't know, because I think there were like irregular hours and then you can't build any business that way, so I don't know.
The,
But- We did get feedback from the original tenant when it was up and running years ago, probably 4 years ago, that the projections on foot traffic that they were expecting to make the business work didn't meet, what they got didn't meet their projections. And so that is the challenge then of enticing new tenants to come in and pay rent. To your point, Craig, there
Yeah.
isn't sufficient volume of traffic in that area.
now it's interesting, I agree with Laura. The recent DC, and now I want to bring this up, the recent Denver Community School District meeting is talking about a new elementary school being located near our library. Coming up, I don't know where, but near our library. So I'm seeing that new, because there's so much of residential housing that's happening. So, I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but that's the new proposal that they brought up. And the last time that we had, I think bubble tea, et cetera, I remember talking to that gentleman, talking about if they kind of promote their business when it comes to, there was so many events, houseful events, but there was nothing that was saying from the bubble tea people at that time, like, hey, we have this cafe here, or like, the promotion, the attraction to those people. And I said, why don't you give gift cards, and attract that kind of traffic? As well as the last few years, there are those baseball diamonds that have come up. And we had communicated a lot when we had a few items, when we had the snack cafe kind of a thing going at Easton, to go down, parents, we would communicate through PTAs or Danforth School District's social media about going down to Easton to have a cup of refreshing something and check books out, but I don't think there was much traffic even then,
I think,
and we have promoted.
I think we'll need to move around. If we have some time at the end, we'll come back to this, otherwise we'll put it on a future agenda.
Sure.
Amended.
So a couple of other items, the signage project at Maine is done, and we're really excited with how that turned out. And again, we're hoping to try to make that happen at both branches as well in the future. We're still having some ongoing behavior issues at Maine, which we're addressing. Lexi did great work this last month with, or the last 6 weeks or so, doing an audit of frequently challenged and banned books to see if any items had been disappearing. We were pleasantly surprised with the results on that. Summer reading was a great success this year. We exceeded our expectations. We ended up having a 54% increase over last year in terms of our participants, so we're really excited about that. I would encourage anyone on the board to attend the October 12th City Council meeting if you are able to. There will be a presentation at the beginning of that meeting with the mayor to present to the 2 winning schools for that, Hayes and Trinity, so the public and the private schools. They'll receive a trophy and then also $1,000 in new books for the school library. And again, that's October 12th at 5:30, if anybody is available to attend. We modified, let's say, okay, the reading challenges. Melody had mentioned earlier, we're doing Hispanic Heritage Month, and then the Teen Reading Challenge in October, and then Native American Heritage Month in November, so we're excited about those reading challenges. And then winter reading challenges can be around the corner in a couple of months. We modified the Rsvp process for youth programs. We had that in place for a number of the last 2.5 years because of COVID. So we don't require an Rsvp for most programs for children anymore, because we're able to provide that higher level of service now. We still will require Rsvps for programs that involve supplies, so that's still important. There's a whole bunch of really great programs that are and events that are occurring and upcoming, and so those are in there. I'd encourage you to check those out whenever you can. We got library card sign-up month. I can go on and on. There's too much in here. Trunk or treat is coming up next month, which will be really great. Good progress on training. Lots of stuff. I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has about the report.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll move on. Marion is not present, so we will have a report on the city council liaison. Next item on the agenda is old business. First, the item there is motion to approve the makerspace policy, which we discussed at our previous meeting. May I have a motion to approve the makerspace policy?
So moved.
Thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
I second it, Steve.
Thank you, Melody. So a motion and a second to approve the makerspace policy. Is there any discussion?
There's one item just to point out, there were two changes made since the last review of this. The first one was from the DEI team that had an opportunity to look at the policy, and they recommended in that first paragraph to add a little bit more detail about what a makerspace is, so that sentence is new. And then also on the second page, item number 15 clarifies that anybody can request assistance from staff if they need accommodation, and that's something that we would do for any of our services or programs, but it's spelled out now in the policy, so those are the two changes.
Sounds good. Oops. And also with the item 8, added unintentional misuse.
Oh, correct, and this does include all the changes that Amanda had brought up last time as well.
Okay. Any other discussion? I had just one item, but this is not a change, but just a thought. You probably have already thought about it. But it talked under the 3D printer portion of the policy about no, I'm sorry, it's not the 3D printer policy. It's somewhere in here. It talks about that the materials that are used in the makerspace need to be appropriate for the use of the equipment. Um,
14.
Thank you. I just zeroed it on myself, so thank you. It says permission to use the makerspace or materials created within it. No, I'm sorry, that's not what I was looking for. Anyway, someplace it says in here that the materials used, that people would bring with them need to be compatible with the equipment or something like that. And I was just asking if, or going to ask if, you know, haven't considered already that maybe there be some type of, might know in advance, what qualities might be needed, or what. Point to that later when I can find it again. Okay, so approve the makerspace policy. Call for the vote. Sylvia?
Yes.
Amanda?
Yes.
She said yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Laura?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. Motion carries.
Steve, me,
Thank you.
yes.
Oh,
That's okay. That's
back up to
okay.
the top of the list. Sorry.
That's okay.
Alaviga votes yes. It's unanimous.
That's okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is new business. First item there is a motion to rescind the COVID-19 pandemic policy.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion to rescind that policy. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Craig. So a motion and second to rescind the COVID-19 pandemic policy. Discussion.
Obviously you're very, very familiar with this policy. And it was created in response to the outbreak of the COVID pandemic. So it was introduced in May of 2020, and then it went through 8 iterations where we were constantly updating it over that next year. We're at a point now where we haven't updated it for 18 months. So we believe we're at a point where we do not need to use this policy anymore. None of the items on it have been in generally accepted practice for at least the last year, I would say. So staff feels that we don't need it anymore, but we can re-add it if we need to.
Sure.
If we need to have, there won't be another COVID, so.
To get rid of it.
I guess
No.
one question. Has the city done have they revoked their, whatever restrictions they had in place? I mean, so we're in sync with what the city overall has done? Okay.
Good question. Hey, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Laura?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Malavika? Sylvia?
Yes.
Thank you. And my own vote is yes, the motion carries. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a motion to approve the 2024 business plan. Front that is something that goes into the city budget. And also remind you, which I probably don't have to do, but every year this is right up to the end. I don't know why they can't adjust their schedule back about a week, but we always have to ask for an extension, as we did this year, to allow us to vote on this. So that's why it wasn't presented last month. So really, okay, we need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
Thank you, Joe. You have a second?
I second it, Steve.
Thank you, Malavika. I have a motion and a second to approve the fiscal year 2024 business plan. Is there any discussion?
Okay, so again on this, in addition to what Steve had mentioned, there were just a couple of tweaks to the process this year with the format. All the items that are highlighted in turquoise are areas that we can change. So those are up for discussion if we would like to modify any of those. These are the recommendations from administration and the supervisors team after reviewing this process. We did request an extension. We need to get that to them once this is approved by the board. So the first section is statement of purpose. The second one is the core services, operating statistics, the strategic goals, which are taken directly from our strategic plan, and then our strategic projects, which are projects and goals and objectives set for FY24, some of which we are in the process of doing now and might also start during FY23 and into FY24.
I have one question in the operating statistics section, page 2. One of the first item there is circulation of library materials, and starts off in fiscal 21 at just under 392,000. It ends up in 24 at 454,040. In that time period, I don't remember when we put in the automatic renewal, but is that recognized in there? In other words, that's going to reduce our circulation since books would automatically be renewed for a second X number of weeks.
That's a great question.
Right, no, we can't count auto renewals toward
Right.
our circulation, so those are not included within those 21 and 22 numbers.
The auto renewals. are-
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure we didn't get out there and, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, no, I assumed they were, but just wanted to ask. Are there any other questions or comments? I like the new format in that they took out the graphs that always had the
Yeah.
funky, some of them didn't start at 0 axes. Okay, if there's no further discussion, call for the vote. Laura?
Approved, yes. I, Chairman.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Craig?
Yes.
Malavika?
Yes.
Sylvia?
Yes.
And Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. And my own vote is yes, motion carries. Next item under new business is discussion of the filming and recording policy. Jeff, you want to tell us about that? Or
Thanks, Steve.
cancel it?
So for the past few years, there've been a loosely organized to target government spaces and agencies for alleged, and they've focused on public libraries as well. They call them First Amendment audits, and they essentially involve an individual recording themselves and then claim a right to film that's accessible to the public. Interaction to YouTube or other social media rights. And in some cases, the individual harassing in nature, and they'll go into areas that maybe they shouldn't be in, and they might just be really in front of somebody's face. So as a limited public forum, the public library, the courts have found that the rights of individuals can record. It is a First Amendment right for them to record, and then also Iowa is a one-party consent recording state as well. With that said, we can establish rules. The Board of Trustees obviously can establish rules that prohibit people from going into staff-only areas, and then also from prohibiting people from harassing staff or patrons in public areas. Our best practice essentially is to ignore someone that's recording unless they interfere with the employee's ability to do their job or if it becomes harassing in nature. So we've taken some steps to ensure that the safety of staff is okay. We posted staff-only signs in appropriate locations at all 3 of the facilities. We also started locking a few of the doors that were previously left unlocked during our open hours. So what this is a new policy called the Filming and Photography Policy. It's based on a template provided by Rails, and it addresses these issues that we discussed, as well as clarifying what to do for media requests, and then addresses legal recordings of the board meetings, and then acknowledges the use of building security cameras as well. We did send a copy of this to City Legal on August 29th. We have not heard back from them yet. And our recommendation is just to discuss this under first consideration. It would potentially go to the board again next month.
What, do you explain Rails, just what it stands for?
Yeah, it's the consortium in Illinois.
Okay.
That's essentially like river share libraries.
Any
Has this
questions?
happened?
It hasn't happened here to my knowledge. I've experienced it firsthand at previous libraries.
So maybe you're the problem.
What's that?
Oh,
Straight back from the one question
That's possible.
one question I have is, the, question of somebody harassing members of the public and or staff. Would that be currently covered under our other policies? So we don't have to do anything in regards to that?
Correct. Yeah, great question, Tom. That's included in our behavior policy.
And then do we actually have to specify that these areas are staff only? Or is that just purely put a sign up and that signifies it?
We've done that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is, just always reminds me of the hog confinement operations where, what is it, like PETA folks would go in and either go in with, as a reporter or something,
No, they got
or
hired
sneak
on-
in.
No, they got hired as employees.
Oh, that was it, yeah, or
Yeah,
they
and
would
then they
sneak
had
in.
cameras with them and
Yeah.
they covered all kinds of interesting stuff.
So,
I
Never
assume
know.
there's nothing that interesting here.
You'd be wrong.
See, it's not just me.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I echo your sentiment at the academic library.
So we cannot vote on this yet,
Right.
because we are waiting for approval from city legal.
We're just, typically.
This is,
Because it's not on the.
Typically, we would have discussed it at one meeting and then potentially approve it the next. So,
Have you ever had people to come and photograph their homecoming photos in the library?
Definitely seen
Yeah,
folks come
yeah.
in and do, I don't know if homecoming, I've seen senior photos.
Senior, okay.
Definitely seen those here.
Or brides or somebody.
No weddings.
You never know.
Yes.
Bill Robo would have liked that. That's good suggested.
We did have a wedding in our library. Yeah.
A wedding?
Yeah.
Okay, next item on the agenda, under new business is presentation on the project to enhance youth areas. I see. Assuming you're gonna do it.
That's me. I've got a PowerPoint that Casey will bring up on the screen here. Just for a little background, this is a presentation that I did for the Friends of the Library Board last week to talk about a potential opportunity to enhance the youth areas at all 3 of our buildings. That's okay.
I guess I was on the first.
Yep, that's okay. Thank you. So you can move on to the next one. So just in case you haven't been out to the branches recently, I did want to bring some photos to show you what the children's areas at those locations currently look like. So this is our children's area over at the Eastern Avenue branch. So as you can see, there is shelving at children's height, furniture that's comfortable for them to sit in, and some small opportunities for play in those areas as well, with the Lego Duplo table, a puppet theater, and then the interactive touchscreen play table. The next slide will be pictures from Fairmont, where it's a similar layout with the shelving, seating opportunities, and some places for the kids to play with similar types of interactives that we have at Eastern. And then, of course, the main library here, where you've likely seen me recently. So as you can see, we have some very functional children's areas with plenty of shelving for the materials that they are checking out, plenty of spaces for them to sit and read comfortably and enjoy those. But what we're looking to do is enhance the play opportunities in those areas to have more opportunities to engage them in educational and interactive play. So what that would look like is perhaps this picture here. This is from a company called Virgin Group. They are working specifically with public libraries to enhance their children's areas to provide opportunities for early literacy play. So what we want to do in this project is to establish our libraries as a premier destination for kids and their parents and caregivers, creating this vibrant youth area and lots of educational opportunities. So we'd be looking to purchase some large signature pieces like what you're seeing in this picture with this boat, and then all of the different kiosks and interactive panels that you see around it, so we can engage kids in those different types of educational play for different learning styles and opportunities to promote early literacy concepts. So why do we want to do this? As you all know, early literacy is critical for lifelong learning. I brought some statistics from the Davenport School District here to show you how we're currently doing here in Davenport. So this graph is from their spring FAST data from testing that they did with students to determine how many kids are reading at grade level. And as you can see, we've got a lot of kids here in Davenport who are not reading at grade level, especially in these post-COVID years. So for example, our 3rd graders, right now, almost half of them are not reading at grade level. So implementing some of these interactive structures can help with building those early literacy concepts. And for example, Virgin Group, the one I showed that picture from, they are designing those specifically utilizing the Public Library Association's Every Child Ready to Read concept of talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing. So their structures have all of those elements in them for different types of play because those are shown to promote early literacy. So that's going to help these kids get a leg up so that when they enter school, they're ready to read, ready to learn. So we're trying to create a safe space to learn and play in a fun and engaging way. We would want to be doing this at all 3 of our locations, so it's spread all across Davenport, and that's a chance to benefit everybody here in the region. And of course, as you can see from those previous pictures and this one, we'd be adding a lot of vibrant graphics to really draw attention to those areas and better fit us into the model of what a 21st century library looks like. So we did want to have kind of an overall theme so that we'd have a unified vision of what our libraries look at like here in Davenport. And we're looking at making a nature theme with these, but we do want to maintain the distinct identities of each of our 3 buildings. So we looked at picking a specific nature theme for each building, and that would be informed by what is around that building. So for example, here at Maine, we have that great proximity to the Mississippi River. So the theme here would be riparian or river themed. Fairmont would be woodlands or wetlands, and of course Eastern would be prairie. So you can see a picture of like what one of their nature panels looks like with these beautiful cattails, and then along it is the water with all the little interactive structures for kids to play with in different ways. So what we'd be looking at adding is one prominent point of entry. So you can see in that top picture, with the little kind of almost an archway that says children in it, and that's going to direct people immediately to the children's area so they know right where to go. A large signature piece in the middle of the space. So that middle picture has the big boat that's in the water, so that'd be great for Maine with our river theme. As you can see, there's lots of interactive opportunities within that panel and opportunities for book display as well. You can see the curved pieces have board books on it, and when they don't have books in it, there's opportunities for play with those as well. 1 to 2 mid-sized pieces or kiosks in the room as well, and then 8 to 15 interactive panels on the ends of stacks, so you can see that details. So the timeline and cost we shared with the Friends for potentially taking on this project. Right now, we would be entering a quiet phase, and we would do that through October 31st. We're looking at different grant opportunities to help fund this. And then we did receive an indication that the library is receiving a significant bequeath from someone who this would be a perfect fit for that project. We would then look at going into a public phase starting in November and having that be the annual appeal for the annual fund for the Friends, and then the appeal for Giving Tuesday as well. Because we've seen that when they have a specific project that we're fundraising for, they get better responses from donors. We look at completing that public phase in March and hopefully get those enhancements in place by the end of 2023. So at this time, we haven't asked for a firm commitment from the Friends. We just presented this for informational purposes, but we did ask that they consider committing to matching funds that the library raises for this project for up to $500,000. So that's what we shared with them last week. Does anyone have any questions about this project?
So the library would be doing the fundraising and Friends would match. The Friends would not be doing the fundraising.
We've so far all we've discussed is that the library would be doing some of those grants, and then that we've got that bequeath, and we're hoping the Friends will be able to assist.
Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Is the bequeath, would it be, are you going to reach out to the public for monies as well?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know if it'd be called unethical or not, but could you be saying that you have matching and put it out to the public, hey, we're looking for matching monies, and if the bequeath is more than that, great, but to use that as an incentive for the public?
That could be an option.
Just something to think about.
Usually helps.
Any other question?
I guess my question is what we were seeing in your slides appeared to be basically with maybe a little bit of decoration. And essentially, that is essentially what we're talking about here. You know, taking some space we currently have and getting some new equipment for that space. Am I correct? Is that?
Yes, I mean, and I can, if it would be helpful, I can send along some of those pictures so you can see a little bit better, because I know it's hard to see with them being so small.
The pictures are great. It's just that I just wanted to understand that that's essentially what we're talking about here. So we're taking an area we currently have configured one way, and we're going to configure it a different way.
Are you thinking that in the budget or what?
No. I'm just, that essentially is what you're talking about here. So, yeah, it would appear that in terms of grants, not knowing RDA, SCRA, those kinds of people, but it would seem like this is the kind of thing that we at least potentially could get money for from them.
Absolutely, yeah, and we are looking at applying for one grant from RDA. Their deadline is September 30th, and we're on track to hit that deadline. So we think that'll be one of the first to segue from this substantial amount of money that we'll be receiving. Once we have more details on that exact amount, we'll share that with the board so you're aware of it. But essentially that's what we're going to do is we're looking at trying to make these spaces that we've already dedicated for children and then their parents and caregivers, and just take them from being really good spaces to just amazing, fun, exciting places, vibrant places where they'll want to come again and again and again. And if we're able to, some of those panels are going to be interchangeable as well. So these little, interact and learning and engaging with, we can pop those out and then cycle them between buildings if we want to. They're designed for public libraries specifically, so they're real robust. They're going to last. There's no choking hazards. Really great quality stuff. And then as Lexi had mentioned, they tie it to PLAs, Every Child Ready to Read. So they're specific for public libraries where it's more self-interactive. These are items that you wouldn't see in a classroom. You're not going to see in a museum. They're going to be unique to a public library and our unique environments where it's a lot more self-directed play, where you might have unattended children that this is kind of their first classroom in many ways.
And it's really a one-time cost, correct? I mean, we're basically buying equipment or furniture or whatever you want to call it, and then there's no staffing requirement or
Correct.
Licensing, ongoing maintenance, nothing.
Correct, yeah,
Thanks for clarifying.
it's gonna be a one-time for the life of the equipment. We'll try to build in a budget in future years to be able to replace a certain number of items or refurbish them. But that's gonna be long-term. And hopefully if we are able to think that, in theory, the Friends might be able to assist us with as well. We're shooting for $1 million is what we're doing. And it's a big shoot. But we're gonna see how far we can get there. We believe we're already gonna be at about 260,000 today. So we're already a quarter of the way there.
I think this would be very appealing, like, for the parent, the little kid just like, wow, this is nice.
Yeah, it looks very.
Questions, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda. Be brief there, we really have a lot of plan. I did want to mention that Malavika had told me before the meeting that she had another appointment, needed to leave at once, so that's why she left. And also it's banned books week, so just mention that if you haven't seen that already. Next item on the agenda is board training, and that's Jason.
That's me. So I'll keep it brief. And I know you have a sheet there that will say some information about the ERP budget, which is the budget that IT operates under. ERP is Equipment Replacement Plan. So the budget was initially created to create a fund for replacing equipment. But of course, the scope of IT has grown a lot more than just equipment. But before I get into that, Jeff kind of tasked me in this meeting to talk a little bit about what IT does for the library. And as I sat and thought about it, I realized what a daunting task that is. I started to write it, and of course he said keep it brief, and I started to write, and I had a page in about 2 minutes. I just had to stop myself. So some things you would expect that we take care of, some things you would not expect that we take care of. I often hear staff say, if it's into a wall, just get in touch with IT. And while that's not always true, it is mostly true. One thing I noticed when I was thinking about this actually is I was at the Fairmount branch and I was just kind of looking around the building and I thought you could challenge someone to stand in a place anywhere in the library and see if you can not see technology. It's everywhere. There's screens, there's cameras, there's access points. There is technology in every facet of what we do. So that's what IT does. Small, but it sounds big. So on to the budget. That's kind of the main reason I'm here today, is we've just had challenges. As we've grown as a library, the IT department and the IT budget has not grown to match what we need to do. You know the difficulty just in general right now of inflation, and it's hit everybody. The IT budget hasn't changed since fiscal year 2017, and at that time it was cut in half. And it's remained unchanged ever since. And just here, try to keep everything very brief for you. Just to kind of show you a few examples of some things that so as I was saying before, equipment is not all we do. Actually, a huge portion of that budget has become software, because that's such a key part of technology. It's, it's half equipment, half the software. And some of these examples, actually, and the biggest cost increases we see is in software as the industry has moved to a subscription model. So everything is every year. We used to be able to buy Microsoft Office once, and Microsoft would support it for 10 years. That isn't the reality anymore. They would like to have money from people every year. So just some examples here of like our big costs. Deep freeze is security software we use for the public computers. That's what makes sure when a patron is done using that public computer, it's completely wiped of all information. And in 2017, that cost $3,700. And this year, it will cost almost $5,000. So it's a pretty huge jump, 32% in 5 years. And it's gone up every year. ShareGate is a software that we use to manage our intranet, which is what staff use to schedule, submit time off requests, incident reports, just about everything. And in 2017, again, that was about $4,000. In 22, it's about $4,500, so 13% increase. And our security gateway has gone up 15% in a single year. That's our sonic wall. So at home, you may have a router that keeps your whole home internet safe. It's not really sufficient in an enterprise environment like we have, where we host websites and cloud services and things that patrons access. So like everything, it's a subscription that we have to pay for every year to monitor the network. And it goes up about 15% a year, which is hard to swallow. And then, of course, as we grow and we try to add new services, that's also something that we have to consider. And as you can see, since 2017, we've added quite a few new services. So like Adobe Creative Cloud, that's a great example. It used to be we could buy a copy of Photoshop for about $50 and use it for 4 or 5 years. Now Adobe only sells their products as a subscription. So they cost us about $2,000 a year, as opposed to a few hundred every few years. Our email security service costs $2,300 a year, and that makes sure that staff are protected from phishing attacks. It makes sure the library is protected from ransomware, all the things that IT needs to think about top to bottom as a security package. And that's a cost that we didn't used to have to do. It's just a different world now. And then a security monitoring service that we also hired out that helps monitor our network 24/7. So as an IT staff, there's only 2 of us to monitor 3 buildings and 75 staff and thousands of patrons. So we do hire out a third-party firm that monitors our network 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if they see anything, they message me all hours of the night. And that way we can get things before they become a major problem. But that doesn't come cheap either. That's over $5,000 a year. And just over the years, we've added public computers, we've added staff computers, we've added new staff. And as we try to grow in the future, we just don't have that ability anymore, thanks to the limit of our budget. One thing that staff has talked about a lot that we would love to see is at Eastern, we have a dozen laptops that they can use for kids to come in and game, children's programming, like learning the code, all that. But only Eastern has that luxury, because obviously buying a dozen laptops is a pretty expensive endeavor, especially when you consider the licensing over the years and everything included in that. So that's something we would love to see, but unless we add something to the budget, it's just not something we can do. And then there's some notes here, just kind of about the future of what I've already talked about at the bottom. Software as a service is what the industry calls that new trend of subscriptions. It's a nice fancy word to say we're going to charge you every year for something you used to pay for once. And there's some of the examples that I used there. And we've just gotten to the point where costs haven't allowed us to replace things as much as we would like to. Industry best practice is to replace a computer every 3 to 5 years. And we're sitting at more like an 8-year replacement schedule, which, I mean, as you can imagine, an 8-year-old computer just isn't as great as a more recent one. it's a little long, and it causes outages and it causes problems. And then, as I mentioned, our ability to provide new services, is reduced just because we can't. Even for example, you look at those photos and we have the play tables at Eastern and Fairmount, we don't have one in Maine, just because those cost about $6,000 each, and there's not room in the IT budget. If anything even happens to the ones we have, we really don't have room in the budget to replace it, let alone add more, but it would be great. So yeah, as an IT supervisor, these are all the things I think about and don't sleep over. On top of, our usual tasks of keeping everything up to date and thinking about the security of the library, top to bottom, from the gateway to email to everything coming in and going out, and all the things we take care of, including like these meeting rooms.
No, appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to do it and to talk to you all. Does anybody have any questions about it?
Yes. The business plan, since that becomes part of the budget, or at least it used to, now we have a new format, I guess I'm not sure if there's any changes in that regard, but do we have anything in there for this? Would that be
In the business plan?
yeah, would that be a place to put something in? I don't remember, I didn't think about comparing the two of them, but.
One thing we've tried to do is the city has a process called CIP, where for large projects. And so in the past, like when we redid Eastern's meeting rooms, that was about a $70,000 endeavor. And you can imagine out of my $110,000 budget, that was really difficult to swallow. So we've kind of thought that maybe in the future, we might have to go out into that process to improve meeting rooms, just because the cost of things has gotten so high.
Yeah, the city, the CIP program for the city, they have, it's tied to sales tax and property tax. That is the funding source to pay for capital improvements. And so as that number moves up or down, I think back in 17, I think that was part of the reason why it dropped. I don't remember it dropping that much, but, I'm not arguing with it.
I honestly didn't either, and then I had Casey check, because I wasn't the supervisor at that time. So the budget's been 110 since I took over in late 2019. But I did remember working as the tech, that it had gone down, and then when I saw the number, I was a little bit shocked. I didn't remember it being that drastic.
Does do we know, or do we have any access to how the city budget has fared at this time for IT?
That's a good question. No, I haven't seen that, but we could
Could ask. Freedom of information request.
Oh, yeah.
No, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah,
We could
for
find
sure.
out either, through departmental challenge, not challenges, channels, or, IT folks to IT folks, but it'd be interesting to see how theirs has been, just to give us some, leverage or background, see if theirs has been flat.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So we can have some, because, we also, very similarly, the materials budget used to be in the operating budget, as I recall, and then it was like $500,000, and then it got put over to the CIP budget, and got cut to 415, and, the history of that looks much like the history of this. Since then, it's been flat.
Yep.
Books are not getting any cheaper, or even staying the same cost. So that's another thing I think we need to find a way to.
But you have to understand how the city budgets. I mean, the operating budget is one thing. The capital improvement budget is entirely separate. I mean, there's like two different revenue streams that support the various, and so you have to actually pulling what you just talked about, the $500,000 into the capital improvement budget was actually a good thing.
Okay.
Even though it eventually went down a little bit, but it's funded differently. And so that will be there. if they have to cut the operating budget, that'll still be there.
Is that CIP tied in with the 1 cent sales tax?
Yes, yep, that's part of it, it's one
So
sales
then they
tax.
actually had to make a change because wasn't that originally strictly for school buildings?
Oh, no,
That's a different
that is the schools.
Yeah.
There is a 1% local option sales tax for
Okay, thank you.
communities. Yeah, the city has that, and then they've also got a part of the property tax levy is actually paying for bonds, which is what pays for the capital improvement projects. So, those are, you can't take that money and pay for cops or pay for employees. It has to go for projects, capital projects.
Well, I think it's obviously something we need to work on by whatever means and avenues that is, so.
Yeah, it would seem like that we should be able to get the city to bump up the CIP part of that project. I mean, of $110,000 for how many years? There should be some sort of increment up. Probably not gonna match inflation, but you're gonna get something.
And ultimately, that's my only goal, is just to bring a little bit of attention to it. And I know no one in this room has direct control over the purse strings, but if I can get some people on my side, so when discussions happen, that's fantastic.
Yes, but when we work on the budget, we see you're at 110 last year and think, well, they made it last year, let's
Sure.
do it again, so you gotta ask.
Yep, exactly. If you don't know, you don't know.
So I guess, Jeff, what I'd ask if you could maybe give some thought to how the best way to approach this.
Yep.
I mean, the board certainly needs to advocate for these kinds of things, and I'm not sure what the best way to do that. I don't think, I'm sure we don't want to go as a group and protest with signs. But,
No problem with
Maybe.
that.
Anybody else?
not as a first thing to do anyway.
Nice.
So.
Yeah, we are definitely in the middle of the budget process right now, or at least the beginning stages of that. The first step is that business plan. On Friday, the capital improvement, the CIP projects are going to be due. And then 2 weeks after that, the actual FY24 budget from the library. Then we're going to be meeting with the city after that as well for further discussions and refinement leading into the season. January is when that's really going to pick up. But obviously, we're going to request for increases where there is a business case or a business need for that. The library materials is one that's in the CIP, and then also the Erp budget is also in the CIP. And both of those are ones that there is a business case that we can document for why we need to increase those revenues if possible.
Okay, so the ERP budget is CIP also?
This is, yeah, this particular one is a CIP. This is just like the library materials one that's at 415. This is the one that's at 110. Those are the two that are ongoing. All the other CIPs are one-off projects that are for a specific fiscal year.
Yeah, I didn't know if these things were, I don't know what the criteria is, if they were long enough service life to be, capital items. Or
They do, yeah. The equipment is at least 3 years, and then another portion of that is 5 years or more, and it needs to be at least $5,000 or more, and then a project. So that's where the materials of items, even though some of them are less than 5,000 obviously each, but collectively they hit that threshold.
Okay. Yeah, if you can give us some advice on what you think we can do or how we ought to go about trying to help.
Well, this is definitely the first step, is making sure that the board is aware of what the need is for tech, because it is such a critical part of a 21st century library. And then I just do want to acknowledge the great work that Jason's doing as well. Again, there's only 2 people
Yeah,
in the team for 3 buildings and a lot of equipment. And Jason and Richard do a great job of keeping everything functioning.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda is to adjourn. Okay, is there a second?
Sure.
Okay,
Yes.
say that with authority. Okay. I don't think we have to have a vote, actually. Not a roll call vote. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your time. Appreciate it.